What is up, everybody? Welcome to the start of a new series on the channel, and one that I'm super excited about. This is Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. Most certainly going to be my game of the year, and already has worked its way up towards some of my favorite games of all time. It is so good. Obviously, this is by From Software, the Dark Souls folks, and although you would certainly call it a Souls-like, I think it does more than most to differentiate itself, particularly in the movement and the combat system. It's really quite different. In fact, the combat system is quite a bit different than anything I've really seen before, and I think it is the best part of the game. It's so unique and so good. So what are we doing? Well, I've done enough playthroughs of this now that I think I should be able to do a good series. So we're going to be trying to do... Oh, I got it. Thought I was going to miss that jump. What I'm going to be doing here is doing a comprehensive style run. You can't technically do 100% in a single playthrough, but you can do about 95%, so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be going for all bosses, all items, that sort of thing. And we're going to be going for the true ending or the return ending, which is the most difficult ending to get. Now, one thing you'll notice right off the bat, if you are a Souls veteran, is there's no character creation, and your character actually talks. And this is quite a bit different. I will admit I was certainly bummed when I heard that there was no character creation, because I always enjoy messing around with those character creators. However, if you do a created character, you basically are thrust down two routes. There's the generic character storyline, where you can't really roleplay your character anyway, and there's the silent protagonist route, which leads to a weaker story generally. So, by giving you an actual character, they're able to develop the story quite a bit more, and they certainly do. This is a lot more narratively driven than Souls. That said, there's still some stuff that's kind of ambiguous in the game story-wise, but a lot of it we will discover as we go through. The gourd of medicinal waters, you mean a flask? Huh. Anyways, for instance, right here, we're talking about something that happened that we don't really know about, but we'll figure it out. Everyone's talking about that night. Look at the moths flying around the flame here. FromSoft really can design a game with an impressive aesthetic, can't they? Also, the characters' mouths move. That's different. It usually doesn't happen in Souls. That's why everybody wears helmets. Yeah, when I find the secret passage, I'll just blow the whistle like, beep. That makes sense. We're not going to do the charm this time. The charm is basically just a difficulty increase that you can unlock after you beat the game, but we're going to keep this as close to a playthrough 1 as possible. That said, I have a feeling that I'll probably end up doing multiple runs of this game on the channel. So, we'll most certainly do a run like that at some point. So another one of the first things that you'll notice, by the way, you know it's a Souls game when you're opening shortcut doors like that. One of the first things you'll notice is that the movement system is quite a bit different. We still have our dodge and hold to run. However, there's a jump for one thing. There's a stealth system. You saw that I could climb onto ledges and stuff. Like so. And what's funny is that despite them never making a game that had all these mechanics, you would swear that all this stuff was in Souls games from the beginning. It's so natural. And it's really so intuitive that after just, like, maybe an hour, you'll be, like, a master at this. And not at the game in general, but maybe at the movement. Surprise! Now, one thing that is really, really great about this game... Oh, I didn't ever heal myself, did I? Is the combat system, as mentioned. And what's so great about it comes down to the exchanges that you get in with the enemies. There's no, like, parry button. You can do these deflects that occur when you press with precise timing. So if he swings at me, you'll see the sparks. That means it was a deflect, not just a block. And as you deflect or you hit enemies, that bar in the middle of the screen, their posture bar, starts to increase. And once it increases all the way, you can perform what's called a death blow, which is like a critical attack. On a normal enemy, a death blow is an instant kill, and on some of the tougher enemies, they have multiple life bars. Like that guy had 2. Let me heal up here. Okay, how was I supposed to blow the whistle? Like, P or something like that? Oh, you messed it up. Now the Divine Air is never going to find us. Oh. So anyways, going back to the combat system, there are basically 2 ways to kill your enemy. You can decrease their health all the way to the bottom, and then perform a death blow. Or you can increase their posture bar all the way to the top, and perform a death blow. And what this means is that there are different enemies where certain ways of attacking them are more effective, but every enemy basically has 2 ways that you can take care of them, so it makes the combat a lot more varied. And what you probably noticed when I was fighting the mini-boss and even the regular enemies, in this game, the enemies don't just stand there and let you R1 spam. They'll actually deflect you back and then try to hit you. So what this means is that you get this really elegant, flashy system where you have to hit a couple times, then deflect, then hit, then deflect, maybe dodge. And the whole combat system is based around lightning-fast reflexes, deciding what to do in that moment. And it's so good. Like, not only is it so satisfying when you pull it off, because, I mean, it is fairly difficult, but it just looks so awesome, because you're not just sitting there R1, 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 R1. You actually have to do these little exchanges with the enemies, even the basic enemies, and it's so good. Speaking of so good, the aesthetic of this area. Now, one thing that I like about this game, obviously it's a very Japanese-themed game, but they didn't decide to go full anime with it. Now, obviously, if you've been on my channel, you know that I'm a fan of anime, but it doesn't need to be in everything. And I'm glad that in this case, they decided to go down the route of the old samurai movies, which, of course, I also love. Like, this whole scene is straight out of some old samurai movie. And then you're going to get this super exaggerated sword draw. So good for it. So good. I love it so much. So this guy is a boss that you're technically supposed to lose to. I'm hoping that I don't, because that would be a sad way to start the series. You're not really supposed to beat him, but it can be done. It's not that bad. Alright, so the main thing that makes Sekiro tricky, other than the fact that I obviously don't really have any heals right now, is that you're going to be missing a few skills that would make this fight a heck of a lot simpler. Ironically, skills that you can get relatively early on. But it's fine. We should be okay. And this will give you a good idea for kind of how the flow of combat goes. Now you'll notice in between knowing, okay, when do I have to attack, when do I have to deflect, there are these unblockable attacks mixed in. And they come in 3 varieties. So you have to kind of, in a split second, determine, alright, is this a thrust, is this a sweep, or is this a grab? And then depending on which one it is, you have to react a little bit differently. Fortunately, every enemy is going to have a tell, so you can figure it out. Like, that's a sweep because he did the little spin to win, or in this case, spin to lose beforehand. And we're just about there, actually. That one's a thrust, because he does the little crouch down. And hey, that was a pretty smooth Kenichiro. I do have some unfortunate news, though. Defeating him there does not change what happens in this cutscene. Ah. Oops. You gotta keep your eye on the ball, son. That said, although that doesn't change, we do get this additional line of dialogue, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. Well, guess it's not the worst Saturday night I've ever had. Don't forget to tip your waitress. I'll be here all night. So as I was planning this series, I was kind of going back and forth as far as what I was going to do for the dialogue in the game, because there is quite a bit. And I think I've got it figured out. So obviously, as I mentioned, we're going for the true ending. We're going to be doing everything that we can in a single playthrough, all the cutscenes and everything. But I think in terms of reading every single line of dialogue, we're not going to do that. Just in the interest of two things, really. Keeping the episodes shorter and not having 50% of every episode be dialogue. I want more gameplay, more action. So if I have to summarize a little bit, you know, skip some non-important stuff, we'll do that, just in the interest of making these a little bit more fun to watch. So, looks like we had some changes while we were asleep. Charmer ahead, by the way. So this is our shinobi prosthetic. As the sculptor here will tell us, it is much more than just a replacement for our missing arm. In fact, you might call it a fitting fang for a one-armed wolf. Or he might call it that. He does call it that, but you're free to call it that too if you want. I'll just probably call it the shinobi prosthetic. Yeah, you must. Look at all these. So anyways, essentially what he tells us is that he saved us, he gave us the shinobi prosthetic, and we will come to love it. And then, importantly, he says the divine heir is still alive, so it's time to get out of here and rescue said heir. And he gives us a little bit more backstory, or in this case, kind of foreshadowing, as to why they care about the divine heir. There's something about this dragon's heritage and the divine bloodline, but we'll get into all that as we get further in the story. For now, let's talk mechanics. And the new mechanic that we have right off the bat is the grappling hook. Now, we can't just grapple onto anything all willy-nilly. You have to have these little icons. But this is a really good bit of unobtrusive AI. Check this out. As I get closer, the circle will slowly start to fill until it hits green, and that means that I can reach it. This is a really great way of showing you, hey, you can reach this. Like, for instance, if you're standing on the ledge and there's one a little bit of a distance away, you can easily judge, all right, that's close enough that if I jump I can hit it, or nope, that's way too far. Without having a grapple, okay, dialogue pop up or something like that. And with the grappling hook in mind, One thing that you'll probably notice right off the bat is that in comparison to Souls, these levels have a lot more of a vertical element to them. Obviously giving us a jump, a grapple hook, and the ability to, grab onto ledges lends itself to a heavy vertical element. And in general, what you're going to find is that because of this element, these levels are a lot more open and expansive, and give you a lot more options in terms of how you choose to make your way through the levels, which is great. I really love how open it is in some points. And one other thing that I really want to draw your attention to is the combat system, which is my favorite part of the game. It's so good. Check out, even the basic enemies are actually going to deflect you and try and counter you. So you can't rely on an R1 spam for the most part, even on the most basic of enemies. And while you will figure out sort of an optimal pattern for each guy, like for instance, alright, this enemy is probably going to be a hit, deflect kind of enemy, whereas this guy might want to deflect first and then counter. It does just make the combat in general more dynamic. Now, you're probably not surprised at all that there are dogs in this game. Fortunately, these are not the Dark Souls 3 dogs, aka the true final bosses of Dark Souls 3. Because you can do the whole deflect to posture break thing, they're actually some of the easiest dogs in one of these games. Shuriken Wheel, aha. We'll deal with that next time, but I'm going to share something with you that may surprise you if you're a Souls veteran. This sword that we're using is the sword that we're going to be using for the entire game. So we're not going to be running around and gathering a ton of new weapons. Now what we do get are attachments for the Shinobi prosthetic that we can use to supplement our swordplay. What's kind of amusing, by the way, is if you're a little sneaky, you can sometimes get a little stabby on the mini-bosses and take off a life bar before the... Wow, that was embarrassing. Take off a life bar before the fight even begins. This is like the worst fight of this mini-boss that I've ever had. Apologies for that. I'm going to have to step up my game for the rest of the episode. So anyways, with that in mind, most of the items that we find on the ground are actually going to be consumables. They're still quest items, and they're still attachments for the Shinobi prosthetic. But for the most part, you're not going to be running around and finding new equipment all the time like you would in a Souls game. Now, you might consider this a negative. I actually don't, because having only one weapon to focus on means that you can really focus on that particular weapon and go a lot more in depth with the combat system of that one weapon. So here you can see kind of an example of how the stealth system works. You'll notice that the enemies don't automatically, psychically know where you are. They will sort of run towards the last point where you were seen and try and find you. Additionally, just because one enemy knows where you are doesn't mean the others will automatically know where you are. And on top of that, there is not a single section in this game where there's an auto-fail stealth section, which is great, because those are super annoying. If you get seen, you just have to fight your way out, or run, whichever is the more effective of those two options. But if you're good enough, you can run in and just, kill every single enemy, fighting them all at the same time. Probably not recommended, but is doable. It's just another element of the game that gives you sort of another option for approaching your problems. Variety is the name of the game. Well, Sekiro is the name of the game, but you get my point. Lady, try again. Clearly. Anyways, she gives us the spell. Says offer it to the Buddha. That's a hint, but we'll get to that next time. By the way, this is good friend Inosuke. He's not having a good day. This is a FromSoft game, right? Did you expect sunshines and rainbows? I think not. Alright, there is a merchant up here that I want to buy something from before we move on. Oh, actually, I need 500 sen, so I'll pop 3 of these coin purses. And buy the firecrackers. Alright, pay attention. That's also a hint. And we'll also worry about that next time. Firecrackers scare crows. Kind of obvious when you think about it, but it is going to be relatively important later. Hey. I just got done talking about how intuitive the control scheme is. Don't do this to me. One other thing that's a really convenient mechanic, keeping in mind the fact that most of the drops we're getting are consumables that are not all that important in the grand scheme of things. You get a nice... oh man. Oh man. What am I doing with my life here? You get a nice... hold X to automatically gather all the items around you mechanic, which is pretty great. It really prevents you from having to run around, okay, loot this guy, okay, loot this guy, loot this guy. It's nice. And I think it works because most of the stuff is consumables. If it was all equipment, then you wouldn't want that, but they knew what they were doing. And that's kind of weird. You know what that almost looks like? It almost looks like a giant reptile skin or something. Huh. I don't really know what that's doing there. It's probably some sort of like obscure reference, like an Easter egg or something, but anyways, definitely has no bearing on what is going to happen to us in a few minutes. But anyways, a couple other mechanics that I want to talk about, and yes, I know this whole first episode is basically just me gushing on how much I love the mechanics, but I mean, it's good. It's really good. Check this out. As we all know, gravity is often the most dangerous aspect of a Souls game. And given the fact that we're going to be grappling and jumping and hanging from ledges, there was a very easy opportunity for the platforming in this to be super frustrating. However, a couple of mechanics are in place to make sure that that isn't the case. First of all, check this out. If I walk towards a ledge, I will not fall off automatically. Now, if I sprint off the ledge, I will. But it gets better. If I walk off this ledge, I will fall down because there's land below me. I didn't even notice this mechanic until like my second playthrough, and when I did, I was like, man, that's a really good, subtle bit of game design. Now, as I mentioned, the controls are so tight and so intuitive that falling to your death is really not going to be an issue for the most part, but it's nice to have that, especially early on when you're still getting used to the controls, where you don't have to worry about, oh, I took another death to gravity again. And in fact, if you fall, you don't automatically die. You just lose a large portion of your health and are sort of respawn to where you were. Anyways, we were speaking about true final bosses. With that in mind, let's go fight the Chained Ogre. We're going to use a trick from the speedrun. Pop a Gachin's Sugar, and we can get a stealth death blow before the fight begins. Which is pretty handy, because this guy will rock your world. I'm going to take this nice and safe and do some circle strats. This guy is very dangerous, mostly because he has this grab that just comes out ridiculously fast. And he has two grabs, in fact. There's a close range one and a long range one. There we go. I knew I had a stagger coming up here. So this is definitely a slow and steady Chained Ogre. If you watch the one in the speedrun, it's a lot faster than this. But there are a couple tricks you can do to counter this guy. The main one is fire. I don't have access to fire quite yet, but you can easily go get it before you come here. And fire will basically auto-stagger him, which is nice. But that was a relatively smooth, if slow, Chained Ogre fight. Defeating him will grant you Shinobi Medicine rank 1, which is an upgrade to your heal ability, which is pretty nice. So using the Healing Gourd will heal more than it otherwise would. Wow, I almost pressed the wrong button there. Alright, we're going to kill this Get It On Bang a Gong guy, so we don't have to worry about him. He's just there to be annoying and alert all the enemies to our presence. Alright, the mini-boss is going to make his way over to me, so I'm going to circle around and open a shortcut before we go face him. Okay. You can't behead the headless. Truer words were never spoken. And if you've ever played this game, you know exactly what that refers to. And if you haven't played this game, we will discover it together, but not this time. Another element of the platforming. You notice you can fall pretty far before you actually take fall damage. In fact, there are not that many places in the game where you will take fall damage, unless you're really trying to. Yeah, we're gonna worry about that at a later date. Alright, let's go open our shortcut. So unnecessary. I gotta say, maybe I'm just a psychopath, but I actually find it incredibly hilarious doing these, like, over-the-top, ridiculously gory kill animations on woodland creatures. Probably wouldn't make PETA very happy, but they're just so over-the-top that they're actually pretty amusing. Alright, where did our mini-boss go? Oh, he's over there. Alright, whatever. We'll just go down and start the fight and worry about him later. Is he at? Still over there? Yep. Is he, like, stuck on the world, or what's he doing? Whatever. Come down. I wanted to do a sneak attack on him. Oh, he's over there now. He's not the most aware supervisor, is he? I'm sure we've all worked for someone like that before. I don't want to alert him. Come to me. Come on. Look, I'll even turn my back. Aha! Okay, I think that's all of them. Let's circle around the back. Sneaky, sneaky. And stabby, stabby. So most of the time you are going to want to deflect rather than dodge, which is definitely a lot different from Souls. However, there are certain enemies that you'll find. Well, there are certain attacks from certain enemies, and then certain enemies in general where you'll just want to dodge rather than deflect. Because what you'll find is that if you are able to do a dodge and then hit the enemy while they're attacking, it'll actually drain more posture than if you were just doing it normally. No. But it's just something you'll figure out as you go through. Alright. Moving on. That's weird, there's some sort of, like, rumbling going on. Don't know what that's about. Anyways, we'll just make our way through the level, and, oh dear. Yeah, if you're one of those people who's afraid of snakes, you're not going to particularly like a couple sections of this game. Kind of frightening. I am not one of those people who's afraid of snakes, and I must admit, this thing does still terrify me. Now, this is pretty funny if you've ever watched the speedrun, the way you make it through here, but I'm going to do it the cinematic way. Pretty frightening. That's not going to make him happy. Okay. Well, the good news is, I'm sure that's the only time we're ever going to encounter the giant snake, and we won't have to worry about him anymore. Right? Yeah, surely. Oh boy. Anyways, we are just about done here with episode 1. Like I said, I want to keep these episodes a little bit shorter. And, wow. Definitely going to have to go to the dry cleaners after that. But, yeah, we are going to cut it there. I hope you've enjoyed episode 1. Next episode, we should actually be fighting 2 bosses, so that should be fun. And not many bosses, like bosses, so look forward to that. Anyways, I hope you have enjoyed this one. I'm looking forward to a fun playthrough. And until next time, bye-bye! I promise never to do that again. See you on the next one.